Fort Free was located in present-day Upper Sandusky, Ohio. It was built on a bluff overlooking the floodplain of the Sandusky River. The local Elks Lodge is built where the stockade once stood, and the site continues to have a commanding view of the land below. The graveyard for the fort is believed to have been located at about a quarter mile to the west. This area is now the present-day county courthouse. During its construction in the 1890s, human bones were unearthed together with buttons that had the letters U.S. on them and rosettes of leather with brass eagles attached. Forkball, a supply camp located on the north bank of the Sandusky River in Tiffin, Ohio, named for Major Ball. The fort had 3 blockhouses. A small tree is said to have been growing in one of the blockhouses in the 1830s. This tree is still there today and is marked with a plaque. Soldiers that died while at the fort were buried to the north of the fort. All of the graves have been built over. What graves were found were removed to other cemeteries. Fort Seneca, Ohio is a small village located a few miles south of where the old 1813 fort was built. This small town took the name of the fort and has some markers mentioning its history. Old Fort, Ohio was the actual location of Fort Seneca. I have read a report that stated Fort Seneca was built on the high banks at the site of the railroad bridge. There is some debate as to this site, but I could find no other clear record. Today I have to accept this information as fact. Major General Harrison commanded his troops from this fort during the Battle of Fort Stephenson. The next site we visit, Ball's Battlefield, marks a site where troops were ambushed by Native Americans during a relief mission to Fort Seneca. It was recorded that 17 Native Americans were killed at this site. No United States military soldiers were lost. Major Ball was the commanding officer of the troops. Fort Stephenson, located in Fremont, Ohio, was the site of a decisive battle of the war. General Proctor and his British forces made their way up the Sandusky Bay and River to a few miles north of Fort Stephenson. Major George Croghan received orders to pull back and burn the fort. But by the time he received the orders, the British artillery and gunboats began shelling the fort. On August 2nd, General Proctor ordered an infantry assault. Major George Croghan ordered the defenders to hold fire until the attackers were within close range. Once within range, the garrison opened fire along with the fort's cannon, nicknamed Old Betsy. The British soldiers were caught in a trench and had little chance once the cannon fired. Lacking scaling ladders, Proctor finally realized the attackers could do very little against the fort. Harrison stayed a safe distance away from the battle. Fearing a counterattack, this might have been the deciding factor that Proctor called off the attack and returned to Canada. Tecumseh was present with his warriors at this battle, but had the good sense not to attack the fort in such a manner. His warriors could have been in wait for Harrison and his troops farther south of the fort. The British lost 150 regular troops out of 500 in the battle. The United States Armed Forces lost 1, with 7 soldiers being wounded. British enlisted men killed in the Battle of Fort Stephenson were believed to have been buried near the Sandusky River. British officers Lieutenant Colonel William C. Short and Lieutenant James George Gordon died in the Battle of Fort Stephenson and were buried to the west of the fort on the middle school grounds. The British soldiers' bodies were reinterred on the site in 1891 with the construction of the Central School, and a plaque was put in place by the Sandusky County Historical Society in 1963 to honor the soldiers. The time of this video, July 2012, with the demolition of the old school, the bodies of the British officers hopefully will be found and reburied. No news has been released at this time. Colonel George Croghan died of cholera in January 8, 1849. Although originally buried in a family cemetery in Louisville, Croghan's remains were removed to the site of Fort Stephenson in 1906, and a granite memorial covers his grave.